Hi everyone, thanks so much for clicking on this video. Today I'm going to be showing off a Ember Fusillade cast on crit Comet build that can easily clear all content in the game, including the most difficult maps and the most difficult Pinnacle bosses. I wanted to quickly go over some of the main pros and cons of this build. So some of the pros, as you saw in the video clips, would be the unbelievable clear. Really good at clearing maps. You're moving pretty much full speed the entire time, and you can kill a huge portion of the monsters before they even get on the screen. It's got really good Pinnacle boss damage, so you'll have no problem clearing T4's Esht. Even Arbiter stands no chance against the Comets raining down. I think that this build has a lot of items that are pretty unique to it, so some of the rings, some of the affixes on your jewels are not too common, and that makes the prices a little lower, makes them easier to find sometimes. And then lastly, I think there's so much room to improve the build. My damage is really great. I have no problem clearing all content in the game, but I still think there's so much room for this build to grow, and I really look forward to seeing how you guys push it. Some of the cons of this build, though, it's a little high maintenance. So the whole having to click your embers each time to get them to stay out can take a lot of focus. It can take a lot of your life, so you have to really keep an eye on that. The defense could be better. Since you're using so much of your on max life, you're a little prone to getting randomly one-shot. Hasn't happened to me in a while, but it's a chance. It's always a possibility, and the less max life you have, the more at risk you are of dying to random stuff. But overall, I'd say you're pretty strong defensively with all the life leech. And then the last thing is shields. Enemies with shields, not energy shields, but like physical shields that block projectiles. Specifically this one guy with the shield that reflects projectiles back at you can be a pretty big issue. This build doesn't have a lot of explosive damage, so the shields just block your damage, and that's why we allocate Titanic on our amulet to get more stun buildup and break the shields. It's not a perfect solution, but it helps. Just be wary of them, and especially those guys that reflect projectiles at you, they can kill you really fast if you're not paying attention, so be wary of that. So first I'd like to explain how the build works, how your main damage is going to be coming out, and that has to do with the support gems you have slotted on your Ember Fusillade. So first we're going to start with Fast Forward. Fast Forward, your skills have 30% less skill effect duration. Now less skill effect duration on this skill makes the fireballs shoot out faster. Now this is what we want. They normally shoot out really slow without any reduced skill effect duration, and that just makes it really hard to use. So we use Fast Forward for that. Swift Affliction is a similar thing, but mainly using this for the 20% less duration. Inspiration, 30% less cost. Now we click this skill really often, so I would definitely recommend slotting in Inspiration so that it doesn't take so much of your maximum life. Wild Shards, now this is the weird one. Supported skills have a 20% chance to fire 8 additional projectiles in a circle. Now, remember this one, we're going to go over it in just a second. And then Considered Casting is just more damage. Now if you're opting not to use a Snake Pit Ring, which I'll go over later, you can replace Considered Casting with Fork, and that'll give you your area clear. I've found it to be more damage using the Snake Pit Ring and Considered Casting rather than a second rare ring and Fork, but feel free to experiment. I'd love to hear if you have any success with that route. Now the way that this tech with Ember Fusillade works is if you click the button once, you generally just get one fireball. But if you proc your wild shards and get that 20% chance just one time, and you'll see sometimes you don't get too lucky. But once you get it, it'll just go forever, as long as you click it again before all of the embers finish casting. So, it's a 1 in 5 chance to get it. Once you get it once, you can just keep it going for the entire map, and that's how we're getting all this crazy damage. And then each cast gives you 8 embers, and the embers only cost the mana or life of 1. So you end up just outputting way more damage than you ever would with like a single ember. And if it's, you just kind of have to be careful before you go into a dangerous encounter that you have all 8 already shooting and active, so that you don't die shooting 1 ember at a time. Next up we have Cast on Critical. This is a big chunk of your damage both in mapping and bossing. You're going to slot a Comet as high level as you can into this. Make sure you quality it too before you slot it in. I know it's easy to forget about. And then we're going to slot the following support gems on it. So Cold Penetration to add more damage. Cold Mastery. Levels of cold skills really benefit Comet, so this is just a big increase in damage. Elemental Focus. This is once again more damage, and you don't need the ailments because everything's probably getting one-shot by the Comet. And if it's not, the Embers are actually inflicting a lot of ailments. And then Rising Tempest, you're going to be using at least 2 different elemental types of damage, so this is just a flat 24% damage pretty much always. Really good skill gem. Now, there's a world in which you replace Cold Penetration with Concentrated Effect. Concentrated Effect here will reduce your area of effect but give you a lot more damage. I found the damage isn't needed, and the area of effect helps a lot for mapping. Now, if you're really focused on Pinnacle bosses and want them to die just that much faster, you can switch this out. I have not found a need for it. All the clips you'll see are without Concentrated Effect. So Zesh will still die super quick. All the Pinnacle bosses are no problem. Next up, we have a big defensive layer here in Arctic Armor. Now, on this one, we'll have 2% of maximum life is recovered on kill while the supported skill is active. Arctic Armor is pretty much always active, so you just have 2% of max life on kill for this support gem. It's worth their 15 spirit, but you can slot it out if you don't have the extra spirit. Bludgeon. If something hits you and triggers your Arctic Armor and it doesn't die by some miracle, they get knocked back. Just another layer of defense. Frost Nexus. This creates chill ground. When it freezes an enemy, Arctic Armor has a lot of freeze buildup, and Glaciation gives it even more freeze buildup. So this is key defensive layer. Gives you also some life regen. Super useful. Arctic Armor you will have exclusively on weapon set 1. This is the same with Cast on Critical and Ember Fusillade. You don't want these on weapon set 2. It'll mess up your flow. You'll end up mixing up your skill points too, and it'll actually make it way worse. So do not mess up the weapon set. Next, we're going to go over some weapon set 2 skills. So to start, we have Blink on a weapon swap. We use Ingenuity with Blink to increase the cooldown recovery rate so that we can use it more often. Unbreakable to have more stun threshold, so if you're caught in a crowd, you can use Blink and get out of there. And then Energy Barrier to begin your ES recharge. Not the most necessary, you really don't have to slot this in, but if you happen to be building more energy shield, might as well, can't hurt. And then we're also using Hypothermia, and now keep in mind both of these are only on weapon set 2, so Hypothermia and Blink weapon set 2. Hypothermia uses Ritualistic Curse to increase the magnitude, or Heightened Curse to increase the magnitude, Ritualistic Curse to increase the area of effect of the curse, and Curse Ground to make it just stay active as long as the enemy is in the curse circle. Now this will make it so you don't have to time it when the boss is up, and will have so much duration on it that you can just set it and forget it, and it'll increase your damage immensely. Next up, we've got Solar Orb. So Solar Orb is also exclusively on weapon set 2. You can have it on weapon set 1, but you don't want to accidentally cast it on weapon set 1 when you're bossing. So I keep it on weapon set 2 only. For supports on this, I use Fiery Death. This is enemies ignited by the skill have a 60% chance to explode on death. This helps with clear. If you feel like you need it, you can use the Solar Orb while you're clearing maps. I don't use it, but can't hurt to have. This is the main purpose of Solar Orb, is to apply exposure. So we put cold exposure on this so that it makes your comets do more damage, because they're your main boss damage dealer. So supported skills inflict cold exposure on critical hit, and you should always be critting. And then this just magnifies the exposure of the supported skills, so we use Strip Away as well. And Font of Blood, this heals you while you stand in the orb. This helps if you place this orb earlier in your cycle of bossing skills. You can stand in it and get a bunch of your life back, because it does cost a lot to place your curse, your solar orb, and use your soul offering, which I'll get into now. The soul offering is a huge increase in damage, 74% increased spell damage when you use it. We used Ablation to increase the buff effect, giving you even more damage. Dance Macabre, which also increases the buff effect, but it takes 2 minions, so keep that in mind. And then Persistence to make it last longer. This skill by default lasts not a very long time, so you want it to last longer so that you can fight the boss for the extra 5 seconds that it might stay alive. Skeletal Cleric, we have 2 of them, and they're both on weapon set 2 only. So these you'll swap to weapon set 2, and then you'll be able to sacrifice them both with Soul Offering that's also only on weapon set 2. Last but not least is Time of Need. Now I had it turned off right now because it's loud, it just makes a lot of noise, but this is what you'll use if you have some extra spirit. Time of Need just periodically cleanses curses and elemental ailments, and it heals you. It's really nice to have, pretty much nullifies temporal chains completely. If you have the extra 30 spirit, I really recommend turning this on. Just improves your quality of life so much. The last 2 pieces come from some of your gear and your ascendancy. So Sigil of Power, you'll have a chiming staff in your offhand. You'll start the boss fight with Sigil of Power, magnified effect to make it bigger so you can move around a little while bossing and not walk out of the sigil. And then Life Remnants, we put Magnetism on here. This really helps collecting the life remnants. It's just so easy to miss them without magnetism. And then Dissipate increases their magnitude a lot, heals you way more. Definitely worth the fade away because you should always be walking forward with this build into the life remnants to keep yourself alive. Now getting into the gear, we use a couple of uniques here. I'm going to go over first. The most important ones are the 2 on the left here. So at Series Acuity is the main survivability in this build. You are going to need this Leech from critical hits is instant. This keeps you alive. You spend a lot of your life to cast these spells, so being able to heal it all back up instantly is like super crucial. I would not switch out this pair of gloves. And then the majority of your damage comes from Wrathpith Globe. You're building a lot of max life on this build. The more max life you stack, the more damage you get from Wrathpith Globe. Now note that I have an overrolled one, so I'm getting 12% from a corruption. You don't need this. The build functions fine without it. It's a lot cheaper to find one without it. Just make sure you're getting a good maximum life roll on it to maximize your damage, and it should be no problem. The other uniques that I've chosen to use are a Grand Regalia. Now I found one with 5 sockets on it, each of which I socketed increased maximum life. Now you don't have to use these soul cores. These soul cores are really expensive now. They're upwards of 5 divine a piece, which is insane. The regular body runes, these plus 40 to maximum life, I tested it out, and the body runes actually give 2 total less maximum life than these Chikanis, and this is 20 div worth of Chikani right now, so totally not worth it to spend that much. Just use the body runes. Eventually it'll scale up, but I don't think you can get life absurdly high on this build, so don't worry about it. But I found one that gives spirit, 45 spirits the bare minimum for this build, and really high maximum life. Just helps, it stacks it really fast, and then the 5 sockets also give you a ton of max life. Last but not least, Snake Pit. Now you put Snake Pit in your right ring socket so that it makes your projectiles chain. Now I found more success with chain than fork. If you put it in the left slot, it forks. Chain feels a lot more reliable. Something you can't get from a support gem, so that's really beneficial too. And then using this allows you to not have to have fork slotted in on your Ember Fusillade because this chains for it, and that way you can use more damage. So really important you have a Snake Pit. If you don't have Snake Pit, use fork on your Ember Fusillade. For your rare gear, I'll go over some of the affixes that you're going to be looking for specifically. So most importantly, on your wand to start, this is a huge chunk of your damage. There's 3 things you're going to want to look for. You're going to want to look for critical hit chance for spells. That really just helps you not have to build critical hit chance on your passive tree and let you build into more damage. Level to all spell skills. Now I only have a +3, +4 is ideal, but these are like insanely expensive. And then you want gain damage as extra cold. This will scale really well with what you have on the passive tree. Definitely recommend looking for extra cold damage specifically, but any gain damage is nice. Those are the 3 most essential things to find on your wand. And for the rune, I put in gain as extra cold once again, because it really scales well. Next up, your helmet. Main thing you're looking for on your helmet is maximum life. you're going to notice a theme. We're going to want maximum life on everything. I opted for an armor helmet. I found this to be the defensive layer that worked best with the build. Energy shield is just really hard to upkeep, and evasion just felt unreliable because we couldn't stack it that high. Armor helps. So yeah, you mostly want maximum life, armor. Rarity is nice, and then you just want to get attributes and resistances on the suffixes because you're going to need them. You definitely need some extra attributes to make the build work, so don't forget about those. Next, for your amulet, I've chosen to allocate Titanic to increase your stun buildup. Now, enemies with shields are really good against this build, and stun buildup helps to nullify that and break the shields faster. It's not something you really want to path to on the tree, but having it allocated on your amulet is really nice. Once again, you want to find maximum life. Spirit is not necessary on your amulet if you got enough on your body armor, but it helps. It's the reason I can equip Time of Need and cleanse all those curses. And then +3 level of all spell skills is the most important thing. So I would look for that over all other things. On your boots we'll get into next, you of course want movement speed. I should really find a 35% movement speed, but I found these boots with good max life, so I'm rocking with those. Main priority is movement speed, maximum life, and then once again you want to cap your resistances and your attributes. You want to have a lot of attributes so that this works, and the more strength you're able to slot in, the more maximum life you'll have. I would once again go for armor here, minor energy shield at the moment, but if you can find one with high armor, I think that would be better. The belt, the main point of your belt is to cap out your resistances and to build a lot of maximum life. I think 3 charm slots is really nice, but once again, highest priority, cap your resistances, then life, and then charm slots would be great. Last is your ring. I think this is pretty much the ideal ring that you'd want. You want max life, you want increased cold damage and increased fire damage. You don't want adds damage, because adds damage only works with attacks and we're using spells, so it won't scale well. These rings in particular are not quite as expensive as anything with adds damage or adds lightning damage, because people aren't looking for cold and fire damage as far as spell builds go. So you might be able to find a good one for less currency than some of the other good ones. And then of course, once again, you want attributes and resistances. That's your main goal. So life, damage, attributes, and resistances. On your weapon swap, you're going to want a chiming staff. The main thing that I look for on my chiming staff is cast speed. Just makes casting your buffs faster and easier. Feels a lot smoother. Now, leveled spell skills would be nice. Level up your chiming or your sigil of power. But other than that, you really, just the cast speed is all you need to look for. You don't have to get an expensive chiming staff. And then last thing is the charms. I really recommend the stone charm primarily to stop you from getting stunned. The thawing and the fall of the axe to be unaffected by slows are nice. I could totally see swapping one of these out for like a chaos resistance charm. I think the only one you really need is the stun charm. One last important piece of the puzzle too is your life flask. Now we don't use mana in this build, so you can literally just take this off if you don't want it. As far as your life flask goes, I do think that it's really important to have a percentage of it applied instantly. There are certain map modifiers that really slow your recovery of life, and if you don't have instant recovery, you pretty much will never be able to get it back. This stops those maps from being a problem. So if you aren't getting your embers out in time, or your life runs low and you can't cast your spell, you can just click one and refill your life really quickly. Super important. Now, thanks for sticking with me through this video. Next part we're going to go over is the passive tree. So to start, the ascendancy nodes you're going to do, of course you're a blood mage here. You're going to want 10% of spell damage leeched as life. So we're going to do both ones on the left side of this tree. Your life leech is super important. It works really well with your gloves. You need it. You need it to survive. And then this side of the tree, Gore Spike gives you a ton of critical damage bonus because you're stacking max life. And then Sunder the Flesh is the reason you're able to be crit capped. So we want all of our spells to be at 100% crit chance all the time, or really close to it. I've had it work with 95%, but you want it to be close, and this is how you get there. Now to go over the rest of the tree, We're going to start on this left side with the increased spell damage. Move up, getting the attributes you'll need. You want to prioritize strength and then get as much intelligence as you need to use your spell skills. Path through a jewel socket, I'll go over those later. And go all the way up. Grab Endless Blizzard, +1 level of all cold spells. As I mentioned earlier, Comet benefits a lot from skill levels, so you want this. Glaciation also helps, just more damage from your cold skills. I'm going to start on the left side here. So we path left to this jewel socket and then down. Now I am using a jewel to be able to allocate these without connecting to the tree because I didn't find much benefit in these small passives. I've seen people not do this. It's kind of up to you, but you'll have to sacrifice something else to not have this set up. You're going to path down, getting all these attribute nodes through another jewel socket all the way down. We want to be on this line of the tree, this fully horizontal line. Go left and grab Blood Magic. This is core to the build, so you don't have mana, and then you can life leech all the life that you spend to cast your skills. And this is the From Nothing diamond I used to allocate these. So to allocate over mind over matter, that's what I use. Then importantly, you're going to go right, grab these crit nodes. I've got them on weapon set 1. This doesn't really matter which weapon set you have them on, but grab them because they give you attributes and crit hit chance and crit damage bonus. This is really important you use the right weapon set on these two. So you're going to get both increased skill effect duration and decreased skill effect duration. You want the decreased skill effect duration on your weapon set 1, so it affects your embers and they shoot out faster. You want the increased skill effect duration on weapon set 2, so all your buffs and your damage increases for bossing last longer. So make sure that you've got these on the right weapon set and you're not mixing them up because it'll really slow down your embers if you have increased skill effect duration. With the last of our points, we go down this way to grab one more jewel socket and a couple more attributes. If you have to give up anything because you're a lower level, I would give up these. I think that's an easy place to get your points back. Next, we're going to go back to this top side of the tree and move right. Super similar situation here. Weapon set 1, we want the reduced skill effect duration, and weapon set 2, increased skill effect duration. I've grabbed these crit hit nodes. I think these give the critical hit chance exactly what I need to hit 100% crit cap, and they add a little layer of defense, so I thought these were a really good one to grab. Path over this way. I've grabbed all of these triggered spell nodes. This both helps our comets go off a lot more often and helps them do a ton more damage. I think these are totally worth it. You might opt to only do one of these paths and get more crit, but me personally I found more success like this. We continue down the tree on the right, take a little detour in, grab more triggered spell damage, gives just a huge increase, and then these crit nodes are insane. You get a lot of attributes, crit damage if you've dealt a critical hit, which you always will, so just super big damage. And then last we path down to, you guessed it, more crit nodes and more attributes. And that's the end of the tree. To go over the jewels I have, we'll first go over the unique ones. So +3 to all Ember skills. Found this to be more valuable than the Comet one. You might find otherwise if you are more focused on bossing than mapping to Comet. But I think this helps a lot, and you have more than enough damage in your Comets to deal with bosses. The +2s are not too expensive. The +3s are a little expensive, but they've been getting cheaper. Kind of just have to check at the right time. Another one, so like I said earlier, this From Nothing diamond, so we can allocate skills around mind over matter. Just helps save some points. Really nice to have. I've got a Megalomaniac diamond. Savored Blood is the most important one that this allocates. Now this just increases your life leech by a lot, and it makes it slower, but since you're using these gloves that make it instant, you don't get the downside. So you just get a lot more life leech, and it's totally worth it. I think that's a big piece of my survivability. I would definitely recommend finding something with Savored Blood on it. These can go for 1 div if you don't care about the second one, the second skill that allocates. That's it for the unique jewels. The rest of the rare ones focus on spell damage, cold damage, critical damage bonus, and critical spell damage bonus. You can also find fire damage on here or elemental damage instead of one of these. These are pretty much the only affixes that you want. They're not horribly expensive because nobody cares about cold damage right now in the meta. Crit hit chance is also something you can get instead of the critical damage bonus if you need the crit hit chance. That's where you'll find the rest of it, is in your rare jewels, and you'll see all my jewels are pretty much the same. Triggered spell damage is also a really good one to have. So look for that. Look for spell damage, cold damage, elemental damage like this one has, and crit. These are all the same, as you can see. Spell, cold, crit. And one last one with cold damage, crit, and elemental damage. Now, thanks so much for sitting through this whole video. I hope you'll give this build a try. I think it's a lot of fun, really unique take on this league, and I think it really keeps up with the meta builds. Now I look forward to seeing how you push it and how you get more damage, more survivability. Please leave a comment, any improvements you have, any feedback on the video. This is my first video, so let me know where I can get better. I'll leave you with some more gameplay footage, and also note that my Path of Building link will be in the description, as well as my POE Ninja. And if you think that you'd benefit from having a written guide on Mobalytics, let me know and I'm happy to write one. Thank you.